So you might be asking, okay, Adelaide, thank you for going through what does striving, what does performance spirit look like? And I'm starting to think that maybe I have it. So what am I supposed to do? Just not do anything? Just throw my hands up and just completely quit? Absolutely not. That is definitely not what I'm saying. The key is to approach every situation in your life from a rest attitude. Now, this is where a powerful, powerful God-given perspective can come into play. We can start to receive with open hands and begin partnership with God. It is with this type of attitude that in the moment, in that breath, Moses was reminded to be still, that God was God and God had his back. And with the action, he was able to actually raise his staff. And with him raising that staff, which is an action, God ended up parting the Red Sea. So rest does not mean an action. It's actually a posture of the heart. It's an attitude that we can face any situation with peace, without panic, knowing that God is actually moving on our behalf, working behind the scenes for our ultimate good, ultimately asking him to lead us by the Spirit instead of leading by our own ways. Pastor Chuck Swindoll states, our responsibility is to enter deliberately into his invisible sanctuary of rest, to trust him completely for safety and provision, that it is our best preparation for the battle to be filled with his Holy Spirit of Sabbath rest. So, when life storms do come about, we are already in a state of rest. We're not trying to attack life's problems or storms with that performance attitude or spirit that we've been struggling with, that deliberately leaves us worse than we originally found ourselves in. So now, what does a posture of receiving actually look like? Well, receiving is not only a heart posture of accepting his guidance, his provisions, but also accepting his identity for us. It's a very, very powerful place to do work from, to build from, to create, and ultimately to rest from. When you receive, you're working from his identity of the way he sees you. See, ultimately, receiving comes from working from an identity instead of working for an identity. When we change how we view ourselves, see, you no longer feel the need to overwork yourself for perfectionism. The symptoms actually start to disappear and lessen over time. The key is that we must see ourselves as God sees us to end this striving and ultimately to be in a posture of receiving. You are worth it. First is admitting that you're in need of Jesus' grace, that you cannot do it all on your own. Those who are able to receive, they come from a place of open-handedness. They know that God is such a good, good Father, that he wants to give good gifts to his children, focusing more on the fact that of his nature of being a good father, good characteristics, and because of Jesus, then we're able to take that on and see ourselves as good as well. You know, I will say this is one great way to break free, is that I used to struggle, and I still do at times, struggle with a poor sense of self, a very negative narrative that I'm just not good. I have to work to be better, and also I have to work hard in order for others to love me and to see me as good. But what do I have control over? I have control over where I place my focus, placing my focus on God being a good Father. That has actually helped me to then see myself as good. He has given me a new identity where I can see myself in a whole new way with a whole new lens. We are receiving his, not only his blessings of physical needs, but also his blessings of spiritual needs as well. When we approach from a resting state as well, God is actually taking our weaknesses and he's turning it into powerful leadership qualities for the kingdom. Say that you struggle, you find the faults in others. Naturally, it comes easy to you to criticize. Well, the beauty is, though, that when we approach from a resting state and we actually surrender that we don't want to criticize any longer, we surrender this to God. God is then able to take that critical spirit that you have, actually turn it into a spirit of encouragement, empowering of others, ultimately calling actually the gold out in others. If we give our weaknesses to him, he is actually able to trade that into a powerful gift and a strength. Receiving from him comes with a place of a lot of peace, that you're operating, you're serving out of your own God-given gifts and abilities. Now here's another beauty as well, is that God actually does not leave us in our striving. He actually steps in. God is such a good, good Father that he will actually step in to create boundaries. These boundaries are actually a blessing that then causing us to surrender, to teach us how to take the heart posture of rest and receiving. God gives boundaries to release this pressure that we put on ourselves, ultimately having us surrender our high expectations in order to align with His will, His expectations for us. Here's an example of how God places boundaries in place for our best good. It could either be a failed dating relationship or a loss of a job or a year of struggle to gain top sales. The beauty of God-given boundaries is it helps us give us space to be open to surrender, to ultimately receive from Him. See, in this process of surrendering to receive, God also uses this time to uproot our misplaced identity, deposit His identity in us to prepare us to receive something even better. See, the key is making space to hear God and to learn how to receive. Now, sometimes it actually does take practice to make space to receive from God. I say it's a muscle that must be exercised, but it is so worth it. The beauty is Isaiah 64:4. For since the beginning of the world, no ear has heard, no eye has seen any God like you who works on behalf of those who wait for you. Creating space to sit and to hear from God. God has revealed so much of a performance spirit that I was carrying that I had no idea that I was actually suffering from. The power is that God started to really reveal so much because I first took that step to create space. Regardless of where you are in your process, we all have areas where we don't fully trust God. Our immediate response is to strive to make something happen on our own. But I want you to imagine a specific instance where you're actually needing God to intervene. As you do, imagine that in the palm of your hand, you're fully gripping it. Slowly, as you imagine yourself slowly starting to release that to God, to openly give that to Him, to surrender that to Him. Now, worship as the breakthrough comes.